Howdy, fellow vine trippers. I wanted to take just a moment before the show starts to let you know about a great website called Texas Wine Lover. They can be found at txwinelover.com. And they have a comprehensive website that can become your go-to site for information on Texas wines, winemakers, and the wineries that can be found in this state. They even have a phone app that you can download, and that will help you plan your route to create your own wine trip. So make sure and check them out at txwinelover.com. Welcome to Texas Under Vine, an exploratory podcast to scout out the best that Texas wine country has to offer. I'm your wine guide, Scott, and I'm here to lead you on an auditory expedition to the vineyards and wineries across the great Lone Star State. Each episode will cover a different vineyard, winery, or wine-related business operating in Texas. You'll hear interviews, descriptions, and details about each location that will excite you to visit and experience them for yourself. Ready to plan a wine tour? Use these episodes to choose the most interesting spots for you and your friends to check out. Most of all, enjoy hearing about the rapidly growing wine industry in the state and what makes our wines and wineries the best. Howdy, fellow vine tripper. So welcome to episode 29 for Texas Under Vine. So I have a real treat for you today as I journeyed once again back to the Texas Hill Country to the little town of High, Texas. It's situated about halfway between Fredericksburg and Johnson City in the heart of the Wine Road 290 and wine country there in the middle of the hill country of Texas. There, I was able to visit the only Texas winery to be named to the world's best vineyards list. Of course, I'm talking about William Chris Vineyards and their exquisite tasting room there in High. Don't let the little town fool you. This establishment is a modern marvel and a beautiful sight to behold. From the estate wines all around to the beautiful tasting room building, there's a lot to experience here. So one of the owners, Chris Vineyards, was in college at A&M, and after exploring a few wineries in the Texas Hill Country, he actually got really excited, and he went back to school and went straight to the viticulture and enology program there and tried to get let in. It's an interesting story. I'll let Chris share that with you here in a little bit. But after he finished that program, he thought he was about to head out to the West Coast and work in vineyards there when he felt like he wanted to stay and start something here in Texas. So after working at a few places to gain some experience, he partnered with Bill Blackmon to create William Chris Vineyards. And in 2008, they started with an American Express card, and they began their road towards where they are today, number 60 on the top 100 wineries, world's best vineyards list, for the second year in a row in 2022 and 2023. They're the only Texas winery to actually make that list. One of the main themes for the winery is intention and telling the story of the land and the grapes that go into making the great wines that they're providing. They boast one of the largest, if not the largest, barrel room in Texas at 5,000 barrels. I loved Chris's family viewpoint as he continually emphasized the whole time I was there that all people working for William Chris are part of one big family and all decisions are made with what is best for the families of all those working in the organization. The standard winemaker's tasting when you go is $30, but I recommend that you do get reservations as this place definitely gets busy and they will turn you away if you don't have a reservation and they're too crowded. And you can make those reservations on their website. You'll see their hours there on their website as well. Now, in addition to a recently opened William Chris Wine School where they're doing some wine education, they also make sure that every one of their tasting room staff is WSET level trained and certified. That means they will provide an exceptionally knowledgeable and educational experience at every tasting. William Chris Wines is actually an umbrella for several properties all working together with similar goals and objectives. So in addition to William Chris Vineyards, the subject of this podcast, it also includes Lost Draw, Skeleton Key, and Uplift Vineyard. Now, when I came to visit, I was honored with the chance to sit down one-on-one with one of those founders, Chris Vineyards. It was great to hear some of the beginning story of the property, as well as what you can expect when you come to visit. And lucky for you, I pressed record as we began talking. All right. Well, I'm here with Chris Vineyards at William Chris Vineyards. And so first off, Chris, tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you into the wine industry?
Oh, man. Was in at Texas A&M from 2002 to 2006 and was working my way through college and in restaurants and thought for a minute I wanted to go to culinary school, but did not want to be I'd worked in all these restaurants and seen like the grind of the daily grind of restaurants. And I was like, I want to do something different. And I was a entomology major at the time and had really no idea what I wanted to do. And one of my call tables, a really great couple was like, hey, have you been down to Fredericksburg? Have you seen wine in Texas? And I grew up in San Angelo, and driven through and eaten, tons of German food in San Angelo on the way to church camp and all that good stuff. And, but I never, ever even considered or thought about wine in Texas. And took my girlfriend. We stayed in a crappy motel and bounced to all 4 wineries back then. And there was a little winery that had just opened up. The owner was really gracious with his time. And it was crazy. I don't even think I was 21 yet. And he of course, nobody really like checked IDs at a winery back then. But he took us in the back and showed us around and gave us a really great tour and tasted out of some tanks and barrels. And like the light bulb went off, was like, you should quit partying so much and do something with your life. And this is that thing. So fast forward to Monday morning and Sunday night, drove back to College Station, and Sunday night looked up the viticulture and enology professor, or two. There was 2, and I hung out and outside of the office of the horticulture viticulture guy, Dr. George Ray McKitchen, and just waited outside his office until he came back, like super creepy, and introduced myself. And he basically told me to come back again in a year because the program was too full and there wasn't enough room. And I was like, look, man, I don't think you get it. I think this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Like, I'll come work in the vineyard. And he's like, we don't have any money to pay you. And I was like, that's fine. I don't need any money. I'm managing a restaurant. Like, I just want to do this. And he was like, sorry, kid, like, time's out. We'll come back again in a semester or a year. And I was like, I don't think you get it, man. This is what I want to do. And we actually kind of got in an argument and
resistant.
Yeah. And finally he slammed his hand on the fist on the desk and was like, $7 an hour and not a penny more. And he was really gracious and let me in the program and signed up for all the classes. And back then the program was, 1/10 or less of what it is today. Now it's a beautiful like wine production area and like, so many advanced classes that are going on. Back then it was not that. And I kind of worked my way up to the little vineyard manager position. There was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 acres out there at that time, and worked in the vineyard, made a lot of really good and a lot of really, really bad wine. And we were making wine out of everything back then, like, watermelon or prickly pear or grapes.
Bananas.
Yeah. We never did bananas, but that would have been an idea. Like, just getting reps in, and it was so much fun. And anyways, graduated, and I had interned at a little winery down here, and was headed to the West Coast. I thought, there's a bunch of great job offers that I got, and sent my resume out, and was about to take a job as a viticultural entomologist, just like running pest traps programs, like, driving around a little pickup and doing that for a big outfit. And at the last minute, I kind of thought like, I felt something that was going on in Texas, and I thought, man, there's something really, really cool going on here, and I don't want to miss it. And I just felt that kind of tug. And so I turned down all those job offers, took the lowest paying job offer that I had in Texas, and stayed here. And it was a really great experience. Got to be a vineyard manager, winemaker, GM, tasting room manager, basically a guy who had just purchased a winery threw me the keys I was like, don't burn the place down, and I had a pretty good idea of what I was doing in a lot of areas, and then just like no idea in some areas, and just started, kept making wine and growing grapes and planting vineyards. And fast forward a couple of years later, kind of got pissed off or inspired and wanted to start my own brand, and met my business partner, Bill Blackmon, the co-founder of William Chris Vineyards, or the William part of William Chris, and who's he's not like retired officially, but he's pretty retired. Now he runs his own vineyard in Mason, and of which we buy most of the fruit, and then he has his own brand that he's working on, Blackmon Vineyards, and we're still best of friends to this day. And William Chris would not be even close to what it is today without him. He, but he's considerably older than I am, and wanted to start slowing down and not farming 100 acres like all the things that we do, and wanted to enjoy all his hard work that he's done in his life. So, but yeah, that's how we got started. We started William Chris Vineyards in 2008 with 40 grand in American Express, and Bill's mother helped us buy this property. She essentially put a ranch up for us to be able to use it as collateral and buy this place. And there's no way we could have done it without her doing that. And 2008 was not a great time to start a business either. So yeah, 29 banks or 28 banks.
Housing crash.
No.
Yeah.
Hard no to two dumbasses from West Texas trying to borrow $1 million, And then one bank was like, how about we'll start with 50 grand? And that's how we started.
There you go. Well, then let's talk a little bit about this location then. So when you bought the property and you started in 2008, did you have a big vision for having estate vines here and a big taste here? What did it look like when you first started? How did you get to here?
Well, Bill and I, the two reasons that we started William Chris Vineyards is we were farming all these different vineyards all over the place, and we felt like the way Texas was going, there wasn't a lot of intention behind the vineyards. There was so many different areas that were growing really good grapes, but that story wasn't getting told as good as we thought that we could do it. We didn't think that the vineyard land was getting expressed the way that it could be. We didn't think that story was getting told. We didn't think the wine quality was getting told better than what we could have done it. And so that was the main driving force. And then right next to that was wanting an amazing place for people to work. And that was really, really important to us, those two things. And when we bought this place, and we actually made a vintage of wine in 2008 at Pernell Cellars. And actually, I'm trying to think of it now. I think we crushed the '09 vintage there, and then bought this place in '09, and then built the first winery and moved all our barrels and everything over in early 2010 when we finished the tasting room, or remodeled the old 100-year-old farmhouse as our first tasting room, and kind of started off. So it was an amazing start, and for the most part, we never knew how we were going to make payroll in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but we just kept on cranking and kept on going.
Just like with Professor McEachern, you were persistent.
Yeah, we don't quit. We stay close to our vision.
So when you renovated the farmhouse for your tasting room, you built the production facilities and everything at the same time with that initial investment?
No, we built a little 1,800 square foot production facility when we went from 400 to almost 4,000 cases in that little small room that we still use to this day. It's just our bottling line room now. But started, and it was super embarrassing back in the day because like every other Saturday we would sell out of wine, and back then there was cases and barrels and shit stacked up to the ceiling as soon as you opened the door. And so we'd have to literally go and put everything in the parking lot for 30 minutes until we could get more inventory, because back then there wasn't any services in the wine industry. There wasn't storage facilities or barrel facilities or people weren't really custom crushing wine for people. But I mean, now there's all that exists. But back then there wasn't. So you just had to like figure it out and do it all yourself. And it was. I look back at it fondly now, but I remember being in the middle of it, and it wasn't as fun. It's easy to look back at it now and just
Right.
It was a great time. It was really amazing, and we were, well then, and I firmly believe now, just continuing to always be on the cutting edge of pushing the wine industry forward.
Well, it's a pretty amazing story to go from 14 years later from a $40,000 at American Express to number 56 in the world.
Yeah.
To be voted. That's a pretty great honor. So.
Thank you. Yeah, we were very humbled and very blessed and grateful for that nod from the world's best vineyards. It was pretty cool. So,
well, tell me a little bit about the wine itself. So where do you source most of your grapes? You already talked about that a little bit, but
sure. So for William Chris Vineyards, probably about half of our production is from the Hill Country. We farm about 100 acres in and around the Hill Country, and we semi-manage about 200 acres of grapes as far as like all the farming practices. We have Andy Timmons and Dusty Timmons in the High Plains, and we are incredibly involved in all the farming practices and all the watering and all the picking, and we essentially broker or use almost all those grapes. And then we work with there's 36 families total company-wide that we work with, but probably half of those are in the High Plains. We pretty much, for the most part, deal with just larger vineyards in the High Plains, and then in Del City. So there's company-wide, when I say company-wide, meaning William Chris Wine Company, which encompasses, multiple brands. There's probably, I don't know, close to probably 500 acres in production.
And then how big is your property here?
This property is only 20 acres. The high estate is only 20 acres. There's about 6.5 acres, 7 acres in vines here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and we've kind of talked about this already, but so I already know the answer to this. I was going to ask, do you process all your grapes on site? But you do. So tell me about your production facility here.
Absolutely. Well, we do process all our grapes on site here. We have 2 other production facilities as well. So there's occasionally when especially like a very small boutique lot comes through, sometimes that will get processed at our Lost Draw facility downtown Fredericksburg. Or it could, and we have our barrel room. I think we have the largest barrel cellar in the state of Texas, about 5,000 barrels right down the road, at Miracle Mile, that we have, a big barrel facility with tanks and everything there.
Okay.
We're looking forward to bringing that back on property at some point. But again, that 40,000 in American Express still haunts us.
Do you still have a hand in the winemaking side of it? Do you still get in there and do
Absolutely.
tinker with everything?
Absolutely. We have a great winemaker now, Tony O'Feel. He's been with me for a long time, and was my assistant and worked his way up. And when Josh Fritche, our previous winemaker, was getting ready to launch and go, I thought about stepping back into that full-time role. But I really believe in Tony, and I think it's important that being a winemaker founder, it's challenging because I want to touch and make everything, but then we have 141 families that depend on William Chris Wine Company for their living. And so it's just, and we farm all over the place and, are doing so many different things. I will say I trust Tony, our winemaker, implicitly, and we discuss and talk, and I'm out in the field all the time and sending grapes in and being his kind of eyes and ears in the field quite often, which is, I love doing it, and I think our whole team still trusts and appreciates my insight, or I think I add value. How's that sound? But those guys, our winemaking team's doing really well. We're in a really good spot, and I hope all the folks on our team, from a winemaking perspective and a grape growing perspective, especially with the vintage variation, It's very tough to like be able to teach that experience. It's, we've had like this year, we had the most epic vintage, leading up to about two or a month and a half ago. And then the extreme heat, it's not a lot of our team has just seen like the 2011 vintage, which this is somewhat reminiscent of, and looking back and going, hey, this is really smart to do. This wasn't, yeah, you thought you want to do that? Don't do that. That's what I did in 2011. It's a bad idea.
Yeah. So that experience helped bring it across to now.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have a great winemaking team. Seth Urbanik, he is our sparkling winemaker and special production winemaker. So he's involved intimately in the William Chris Vineyards process, as well as our other brands as well. And then Claire Richardson, who's the winemaker for Uplift, she still helps out a ton with the William Chris project as well. So
what are your favorite wines to make? What do you really just love to do?
Super loaded question. I think the people that know me best, like I'm very ADD, like I'm just bouncing around all over the place all the time. I have a million ideas. I love being able to work with a lot of different varieties. Sangiovese, Mourvèdre, obviously. Mourvèdre is near and dear to my heart. Tannat has really grown on me in a big way. And we still love making Bordeaux wines, and I think we do a damn good job of it. Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec, Merlot, Petit Verdot, I think by far we're not only the best in the state, but really one of the best in the world at it, and creating unique profile for the different AVAs and sub AVAs that we're working with. It's pretty cool to see those regions. But what's awesome is we haven't even like made our best bottle of wine yet. We're just going to continue to dig in and find these cool little places that grow the best grapes and grow the best varieties. I mean, Cabernet grows really well in Texas, but not everywhere. You have to have the super specific site, in my opinion, to make the best quality. And the same thing with Merlot. I love Merlot, but you can't just plop it out there. You have to think about your water and the sun and the soil type and the weather and how it's going to respond.
And that's where your viticultural background really helps with that as well, I'm sure.
Big time. Yeah, I'm just really blessed to be an Aggie, and then also the School of Viticulture from Bill Blackmon. He's literally had, I don't think there's anybody still farming as long as he has been. Maybe there's 2 or 3. And he's really got a wide breadth of knowledge and planted all over the state. Probably, he's definitely one of the only ones that's planted all over the state as much as he has.
Well, what are some of the customer favorite wines? So what are the ones that, customers, I have to taste this when I go to William Chris because it's really popular. Really?
Yeah. So I would say our most famous wines that we're known for, there's a couple. Mary Ruth, which is a white blend. It was named after Bill's mother, who's she was the one that put up her ranch for us to be able to buy our first property. That's a Giallo, Sauvignon Blanc, Blanc du Bois, and Malvasia blend, all stainless, and it's super delicious. We only do a couple thousand cases of that, and it probably sells out in 5 months, 6 months. It's if you know about it, you got to get it because it won't be here for long. Hunter is an Enchanté. Hunter is a High Plains Bordeaux blend, Cab, Merlot, Malbec generally. And that's got a ton of really cool vineyards. It's generally all southern Terry County. Really, really delicious. It's like I always think Hunter is it's like the 55-year-old super jacked guy that you see coming out of the gym that you don't want to make eye contact with, because you never know what he's going to do. Like, it's a bruiser, and then Enchanté is all from the Llano Uplift, so it's all grown on decomposed granite over sandstone. So kind of, if you think about it, all kind of a microcosm of the Enchanted Rock, a Llano Uplift formation. And I think that wine is really special for its grace and elegance and ageability for sure. And then if you love Mourvèdre, man, you can go down the rabbit hole at William Chris. At one point, I think we were making 12 or 13 different single vineyard Mourvèdres,
Yeah.
which is probably too many. And I think we're down to 6 or 7 now. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the location for just a moment. So people wanted to come out and visit. What type of events or things do you do out here?
We do a ton of different events. I mean, it seems like every week there is something going on. So at the tasting room, every Saturday is an event, frankly. We have an amazing vineyard table experience. So our culinary team sources a ton of local protein, like the Happy Cow or Tipsy Cow Ranch across the street. We feed all of our grape skins to those Wagyu cows and buy some of the beef back. That's delicious. And we have a huge garden on property, and our gardener, Josh, who's amazing. They help prepare a ton of, the menu is constantly changing, and we do 4 or 5 different wines. And for anybody listening out there, the vineyard table experience is probably one of the coolest things that we do on property. And that runs, I believe, every Thursday through Sunday. It's maybe Wednesday through Sunday, but I think it's Thursday through Sunday. You'll definitely need a reservation for or are strongly encouraged for anything you do on property. But for sure, the vineyard table, you can't just walk in and get that done. Our winemaker tastings are fantastic. We pick some of the best stuff out of the portfolio. And you'll get to taste, a wide swath of vineyard specific wines across the state of Texas. I think that's something that really makes us special, is like, you'll get a wine education when you come on our property. If you're just here to come back and, crank 4 glasses of wine, we're probably not your spot. If you really want an intentional experience, yeah, I don't think there's anybody better, frankly, in the country than us at doing that. You really get to know our brand, our wines, where our wine's grown, how it's made, and what our impact on the community is. And I think that's the expression that I want our every guest to feel whenever they leave. But as far as other events, there's everything from crawfish boil to our wine club events are epic. They're pretty widely known around the state of Texas. Actually, some folks from California the other day were like, "Man, we heard your parties are the best ever." And I'm like, "Yeah, they are. They appreciate it though." We do a lot of fun stuff, lots of barrel tastings. There's so many different things. If you can think of it, we'll do it, or have done it, right?
Year round, you always have something on the calendar.
Yeah, I love to cook too, so we'll cook up a storm, or we do a hog and go roast in the summer. That's really great. You name it, we'll do it.
So let's say a listener is getting excited. They want to come in to do a tasting. What does a tasting typically look like? What are the fees for that? Do they have a set flight of wines? Do they pick their own wines? What does a tasting kind of look like?
So a tasting set is generally 5 to 6 wines. And so you, obviously, if you're coming on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it is so much better if you make a reservation, because we will tell you no.
Okay.
I'd rather you have no experience than a bad experience. And so if that means that we're not able to see you, we'll politely say, "Hey, if you want to go hang on our pavilion and have a glass of wine, that's fine." But it's just not as great of an experience as walking through up to our welcome center, getting greeted, go and do a winemaker tasting, or a vineyard table experience, or a vineyard tour, or a winery tour. Our team, if and when they're able, we're kind of in production now, but often they'll bring people through the production facility just kind of impromptu, or when it cools off, bring people out into the vineyard and talk about the soil and talk about our sustainable farming practices, and teach a little bit of how we think about the land.
So reservations for those things, those can all be done on your website, I take it?
Yep.
Okay.
WilliamChrisWines.com. It's super easy, a couple of clicks. You're also more than welcome to call us. We have a 7-day-a-week concierge service, a reservations team that will be happy to assist you over the phone. I'd also highly recommend, for any listener out there, we have fully trained WSET certified staff. Everybody, 141 people, every single one of them is WSET or equivalent certified. And we probably have half our staff's level 2, and then a ton of level 3s as well. Our our concierge team is probably one of the best in the Hill Country at being able to find out what kind of experience you want. If you say, look, I've been to the Hill Country 10 times, I want to know about different AVAs and different terroirs and really dig into the winemaking process. Great. If you also put in the notes or tell them, hey, I've never tasted wine, no problem. Well, we can give you a baseline wine knowledge. Like we'll tailor make your tasting ahead of time. And the more information that we can have, the better partner, the better ambassador we can pair with you to give you the best experience. And I think that's one of the best things about Texas wine in general. Most people are pretty excited. Like we don't care if you just decided to put down your last Dr. Pepper and try wine for the first time, or you've been drinking wine for 25 years. Either one's okay with us.
And you have a new education branch too, that you're doing some of those classes here.
Yeah, we have a full Wine Spirits Education Trust certified campus, I guess is how you say that. So we teach WSET classes, and for your listeners, like I highly recommend checking out the education segment on our website. There's so much cool stuff. You can come in and literally get WSET certified, which is the gold standard of wine education in the world. You can get certified in a weekend, and we also do the Texas Wine Ambassador course as well. So we're offering both of those to not only consumers, but also industry folks. I think it's really important to our region that we continue to train more and more folks and help lead more and more folks to be able to reach our full potential. And understanding wines of the world and in Texas really gets us all better.
Back to the tastings for a second. So what about family friendly? If somebody has kids, things like that?
100%. We are, I have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old that have grown up here. My partner, Andrew Sides, he's got three under 10, I think. And yeah, we are 100% family friendly. There are some of our experiences, like the vineyard table, that really aren't designed with kids in mind. So if you're walking into a $75 wine experience, your 2-year-old or your 5-year-old's not going to have a good time at all, or potentially not have a great time unless they want to sit there quiet for an hour and 20 minutes while somebody presents wines to them. So that I would not recommend for children, for you and the other guests there.
Right.
But all of our tasting experiences are very kid friendly. We have an amazing outdoor area. We have an incredible market. Almost every single time you walk in here, you'll get handed every kid under 15 will get offered a stick of bubbles, which will buy you about 12 minutes of time, and you can go blow bubbles out in the vineyard. And I think our teepee is about to be back up too. We have a really cool teepee on the backside of the property, but it just got beat up in a storm. But that will be back here soon enough. That's a fun thing for the kids to do. We strongly encourage or demand that your kids are supervised as well. So don't cut your 5-year-old loose in the parking lot. It is a high fence area, but your kids aren't our responsibility. But we definitely welcome them, as well as dogs. We don't allow dogs inside. So there's plenty of outdoor spaces, and we'll host you with your dog outside. So we do serve food, so we can't really have animals in closed door facilities where we're serving food.
And then I know you talked a little bit about those vineyard dinners and some of the food there, but what about like just small bite food options for people to come in for a tasting?
We have by far the best charcuterie plate. I will go on record and say that our charcuterie is the best in the region for sure. It's fantastic. We're constantly evolving the cheese menu. Some really fine cheeses from Texas and all over the world. Some great local charcuterie as well, like on the protein side. We'll have lots. It is constantly changing too. Our culinary team's fantastic and really stays up with all the best of the best. Every time I don't think our charcuterie board could be any better, like they'll add one element, I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. And so, yeah, that's great. We have grab and go sandwiches. and salads right in our market here in the old farmhouse. You can walk in at any time, 7 days a week, and get those grab and go sandwiches,
Cool.
which is really convenient. They're fast and easy. Just walk in, and there's cheese plates in there too that you can snack. So,
And then maximum group sizes. Do you have any maximum group
yes,
reservation?
we don't allow groups over 8.
Okay.
So that's, we're not built for the, 30 girls walking in here at one time. That's not us.
Yeah.
And, nothing against those groups. So it's really hard to have an educational experience when we do that. And so we highly encourage, that's not to say we'll never do it, but, if we have a guest that's been with us a while and, wants a special event for their birthday or something, we'll sometimes accommodate that. But no groups over 8.
Are there busier, slower seasons? What's the best time to come visit?
Well, the best time to come visit in the slower season are maybe 2 different things. Our slowest time of year is like August, for sure. But, during the week, 365 is great. I mean, during the week, I firmly believe, and we work incredibly hard at delivering an amazing experience especially on Saturdays. Of course, that's generally easier on a Tuesday, right? With 50 people instead of 350. The reason we do have reservations is because 8 years ago, we used to see 1,000 people every Saturday. It was miserable. We weren't having a good time. Our guests weren't having a good time. And then we said, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We'd rather have our guests have an amazing experience every single time. Do we hit every single time? No. Inevitably we have a breakdown in service somewhere, but 99.9 times out of 100, we deliver a great experience, and give you something that you wouldn't have expected potentially, and, a little surprise, a little delight, and some really well-educated, tasting ambassadors as well.
Tell me about your wine club. I love the name, High Society. That's awesome. But tell me about what that's all about.
Our wine club, High Society, I've been in the wine club game for a long time, and I'm super grateful for it. Ultimately, it allows us to continue to invest greater in growing grapes and making wine. If you sell wine to a restaurant, if you see that, like our wine that is $30, $40 in this that you can buy here is $80 at a restaurant, and that $30 or $40 didn't go to us either. Out of that $80, maybe 12 went to us, right? So all those other people, just for dropping that wine off or selling that wine, make all that margin, which is great. But that's just not something that I wanted to build our company on. We do sell in tons of restaurants across Texas, Japan, New York, Chicago, Louisiana, Arkansas, all that good stuff. Only about 10% of our inventory or production is sold in the wholesale market. But that was from design. I love making these single vineyard wines, these super, regional wines, and maybe 2 or 3 vineyards really, really close together. I love sharing with our fans a real expression of what these areas of Texas taste like. In our wine club, High Society, we send out all that super tight, super small production wines, and they get it before anybody else does. And so we kind of design our wine club a little differently than a lot of folks, in that our wine club members are number one. Absolutely, they are the folks that we bend over backwards for, to not only make these and fight for these small production wines, even though financially sometimes it doesn't make sense. But they're basically getting wine history. I mean, you're getting to try some stuff that is really making the wine world of Texas, kind of turn its head a little bit and go, this is really interesting. But our wine club, you get those first production wines, which is great, and then you get first opportunity to buy them again. Currently, we do have a waiting list, just inventory based. So it just depends on where the wine club is how we can open that up or not. Generally, it's not too crazy though. It's not like you wait 2 years or anything like that. It's usually 2 to 4 months, depending on where we're at on inventory. And yeah, we're kind of just not really growing anymore out of desire.
Can they sign up for that here at the location?
Yeah, you can sign up anytime at your tasting. You can call us, you can email us, you can sign up online. Absolutely. Yeah, it's super easy. And then with that, you get, I don't know the discounts anymore, but you get like a small amount of discount. You know, if you're like a 4 bottle, you get a certain amount of discount. But I think the best thing is you get these super badass wines that nobody else gets to touch, and you get to experience them first. Secondly, if you get the opportunity to come to all these great events. I would say 80% of our events are wine club only. So, you know, wine club members get all these invites to all of our dinners, and most of our dinners sell out in like 2 to 3 minutes. And all the ones on the property. So we do a bunch of different big concerts with some big name country artists, and you name it, blues, all that good stuff. So.
And you mentioned restaurants a moment ago. Do you do any distribution into like stores or things like that? So in other words, how could people, if they for whatever reason couldn't get here, are there ways for people to taste your wine?
Sure. Well, number one way is get online and order it. If you order our wine online off our website, you get shipping included on 6 bottles. And so it's a great way to get to know our wine. Also, if you go to any HEB or most any HEB, you can find our sister brand called Skeleton Key. So there's Skeleton Key Cabernet Sauvignon, Skeleton Key Proprietor's Red, and Skeleton Key Sauvignon Blanc. Those are all, I think, maybe $20, $25. And you can hop into one of those wines. They're super affordable. You can drink them, 7 nights a week. They'll impress all your friends. They'll impress you. And if you like those, then you can really dive into our portfolio, which is pretty deep. I mean, at William Chris Vineyards, we don't make a ton of different varieties anymore. We're a little focused. We only make Bordeaux and Rhone varieties and the little Tannat, but we don't make Tempranillo anymore. We've tried to really narrow our focus to ensure that we're just really getting the most out of every variety. And it's hard to be great at making 100 different wines, and that's why we really focus on 30 or 40 now.
Plans for future growth?
Not at William Chris Vineyards. We're about to build a little kind of mini tasting room over here, just because we are turning so many people away. Want to be able to accommodate them. A little extension on our pavilion. We're gonna build a barrel room as well to bring that production back on site. I mean, even though it's 2 miles away, I love looking at barrels, and it's pretty cool when there's 5,000 barrels in a room, but if nobody gets to see them, it's kind of a bummer,
Yeah.
So
William Chris has kind of got an umbrella of multiple properties. So what are all those properties? And
so right down the street, our sister winery, Lost Straw. Lost Straw is fantastic. Andrew Sides, my partner, leads the charge over there. They do a great job. Our team over there is very, very strong. A wonderful tasting experience. There's a beautiful vineyard on site there. We're in the transition process. That brand originated at downtown Fredericksburg and is at just a really great, almost 10 years in downtown Fredericksburg. But it's just outgrowing and outpaced it's just a postage stamp of a property there. So we've got some fun stuff in store for the future of downtown Fredericksburg that you'll see over the next year.
Okay.
But ultimately, Fredericksburg is a great location as well. You can go taste and see like the original Lost Straw location. We still do production there. And then we have another brand on about 78 acres right north of Kingsland on Lake LBJ, or rather like right on the river. That's a really cool experience too, called Uplift. And but it's a very different experience. It's like, that we only allow about 6 people on property at a time. So you get a gate code and you go in, you're pretty much, there may be one other group on the other side of the property, but it's pretty private. And, I think right now that production's at like 700 or 800 cases. So it's pretty pretty micro, and it's not growing. It's growing, but it's never going to get above maybe 2,000 cases.
There's a lot of places out here that people could go visit. So what do you think, would you say in your words, is the number one thing that sets William Chris apart from any other location that would say, I really have to come check that place out?
There's really great wine bars all over the place in the world, right? The Hill Country is special because I think there's so many different incredible wine regions in Texas being represented. And, there's so many, like, if you want to just go drink wines from around the world, you should just not leave home and go to a wine bar or go to a wine shop and save your money and go drink some really cool wines. I think that there's a few places, less and less these days, but there's a few places around that, are just wine shops that claim they're wineries, which I think is just kind of like, why would you even go there, right? I don't find them interesting. But I think that when you're looking at what wine really is, to me, all right, this is my perception, wine is about growing it in the field and keeping it, having it as the best representation of where it's grown. That's why wine interests me, right? Like, I drink Coors or Miller Lite, right? Like, if I drink Miller Lite, it's not interesting. It's ice cold and refreshing and has alcohol in it, right? And it's great. I love it, right? But it's not intentional, right? And the reason I love wine is it's like, you're drinking, like, if you go to a restaurant, like this is maybe a better example. The best restaurant in the world is maybe in like Mexico City, right? You can't take all that stuff and put it in a bag and like ship it to you, right? And then you have the same experience. With wine, you can do that. And when you get on this property, you really feel it. When you drive over the cattle guard and you get greeted by somebody and you walk in and you have an experience that exceeds your expectations, you try wines that could beat out anybody in the world when they're competitive with anybody in the world from a quality standpoint, and where you learn about where they're grown. And it's a great baseline to go, oh man, I just had wines from the Uplift. I want to go try other wines that are grown in that region, right? This is the Texas High Plains. Well, great. Now I know that that's Southern Terry County. I want to really try more wines there and see more of the sand sage influence, or, go up in the northern part of the county and see a little bit more of the clay influence, right? I mean, there's so many beautiful aspects about Texas wine that I think that you can kind of, get a dose of and get a chance to touch that and taste that and be a part of it every time you come to William Chris Vineyards and get a really good pulse of what's going on in the industry.
There's a story in every bottle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another great thing about William Chris Vineyards is you're next to some super legit, awesome wineries. Our neighbors, Avastris, doing a great job. If you ever haven't been to Ben Calais' spot, they do a great job. We've got Adega Vino right down the road. Ron Yates right here. I mean, everything right here. Lost Draw right down the road. You don't have to go anywhere else. You can sit right here. Yeah.
Well, that's the last of my official questions. Is there anything that maybe you wanted to highlight or talk about or mention, or anything that I didn't touch on?
An ask for your guests or a recommendation. I highly recommend asking where your fruit's grown. Doesn't mean that somebody is a bad business if they have California or Washington wine. No, not at all. But I would encourage our fans and potential fans to think about being intentional. And when you come to the Hill Country, ask for Texas grown wines. When you're out in the marketplace and restaurants, ask for Texas grown wines. Taste them. There's some really, really amazing things going on right now. And I think we're in chapter 5 or 6 in Texas wine history. And you are now part of it. You're listening to this podcast, right? And it's like you can be a part of this Texas wine history. And frankly, I don't want to taste a California wine in Texas, not at a Texas tasting room. That's a wine shop. what's the reasoning behind it? I think that every bottle of California wine or Washington wine that a Texas so-called winery sells is just taken away from vineyard owners here and great farmers. It's a bottle wasted that we could be spending marketing Texas-grown wine, working with Texas growers, and getting better and more education-based consumption and more intentionality.
So if, as Chris says, we're only in chapter 5 or 6, I can't wait to see how the next few chapters are going to play out. And William Chris Vineyards will definitely be a major player in that wine history for Texas. I was taken aback, again, with how family-focused that Chris was as he spoke about that larger encompassing family made up of all the extended families of the employees. And I was also impressed by their dedication to education and experience, and the fact that they have all of their tasting room staff certified with one of the best wine education certifications out there, WSET. I can also vouch that Chris was not lying when he bragged on that charcuterie board. I had one with my tasting, and I had to take a to-go box home with me because it was so full of so many amazing things that complemented all of the wines that I got to taste when I was there. You'll definitely want to put William Chris Vineyards on your wine travel list if it isn't there already. However, make sure you go to their website before you go. So it's www.williamchriswines.com. Now, you're going to find info on all of the William Chris family properties there, as well as read more about their story and shop for some of those fantastic wines, and look at their event calendar. You can make your reservations for tastings and tours. Now, don't forget, when you go see them, make sure to tell them you heard about them on this podcast, Texas Under Vine. So, I had tried their Hunter wine before, and I thought that would be my wine library bottle for this episode, as I really like it. But I was very taken with the Mourvedre that they specialize in. So a 2021 bottle became my wine library bottle for this episode. Now, as much as I want to stay here among the vines and sip more wine, it's time for me to move on down the trail to bring you more info on fantastic locations such as this one. Before I go, however, can I ask a favor of you? If you have subscribed to the podcast and you find value in it, would you please share it with some of your wine-loving friends? I know there are more out there looking for information just like this. And while you're at it, if you'd kindly leave me a star rating and or a review wherever you subscribe to the podcast, it's free to you, and it would help me just beat that algorithm and get the show in front of the eyes of more who are looking for Texas wine travel information. Well, my time is up. So don't forget, subscribe to the podcast and follow my socials to be notified whenever the next episode is posted. Until next time, happy trails and bottoms up, y'all. Thanks for listening to Texas Under Vine. We strive to provide you with the best information about wine businesses all over Texas. Be sure to check out our website at texasundervine.com and follow us on our socials at Texas Under Vine to stay up on all the upcoming episodes. Please email us with any suggestions or feedback. Also, contact us if you're interested in donating, sponsoring, or advertising on the podcast, just to help us cover our expenses and bring even more great info to you in future episodes. Above all, travel safely, and most especially, drink responsibly. Don't forget to also check out the Texas Wine Lover website and their phone app. If you want to plan a trip to the wine destination I talked about in this episode, the site for Texas Wine Lover and their phone app that you can download will really help you organize a trip so you can go see them. You can check out all of the goodness that I got to experience while I was there. But as you're planning your trip, while you're on their website or their app, you can also find out things like accommodations, restaurants, and even some fun events and things that are going on at the wineries, and maybe even find one that you want to experience as part of your wine trip that you never even expected. So check them out. Again, it's txwinelover.com.